Oh, that is fucking bright. Hi, everyone. Before I get started, can I get a round of applause for everyone at Jam, Matilda, Seb, all the team, Sunil. Just what a great show, right? So, I'm not going to be looking up, I'm going to be looking down so I know where I am. So, this talk is called The Trouble with Design Systems. And the big problem with design systems is no one really knows what the hell they are. There's no clear definition of it. And my team and I didn't know anything about it about 4 years ago. And this is a story starting from back then. So what is my team? I work for a company called Paddy Power Betfair. Has anyone heard of Paddy Power Betfair? A couple of hands. Okay, can you guess what we do? Yeah, we do betting and gambling, which is quite popular. And we are not a small operation by any means. We run about 2 brands, over about 14, 15 products in multiple jurisdictions, multiple languages. It's a pretty global operation. We're just moving into the US in a more sustained manner right now. And as a design team, a lot of times it feels like you're supposed to juggle kittens because there's so many products and 2 brands and it's just insane. And the way the team is structured, the design team is, we're across 4 locations. It's multifunctional, multidisciplinary. We handle various products. There's boxes here. And if these look like silos, that's because that's kind of where they were. And just like Steve told us, silos don't really work. Credit to you, Steve. So going back in time to about 2014, a little bit of a state of the union of where Betfair was. It looks something like this. I'll just give you a minute to sort of take it all in all its wonderful glory. And if your reaction, I can't see you very well, but if your reaction was something like this, then it's very much our reaction to it. So why was this happening? It was all over the place, no real consistency to anything. It's just sort of everyone doing their own thing. It's basically because of the siloed system and the large team, it was sort of everyone doing their own thing, not really knowing what the single direction is. But that sort of changed around 2014. There was sort of a change of guard happening in the entire organization as well as the design team. And that kind of led us to define our own criteria for fixing this. And that criteria was to create a shared playground where everyone can look to what design in Betfair would be. We didn't know we would call it a design system back then, but that's kind of what we wanted to do. So how do we get there? We get there with an interface inventory, as most companies who attempt to do this would. So, well, I'll just give you an example of an interface inventory from back then on buttons. And you've got your primary buttons, and they look like a lot, right? I mean, these are all locations. And they're slight enough that they actually make a difference. And that's a lot, but in reality, there were quite a lot, right? This is just primary buttons. Have a look at secondary buttons if you want to. I'm not proud of this. I couldn't be, right? But I'm showing it to you, and wearing my heart on my sleeve. It looks cool. First iteration of what is our design system. And just a spoiler alert, we're now at version 3, so the story is going to take a while to get to the present time. The problem with using Azure is it's really good for designers, but if you're not a designer, you have no idea how to look at all of this. So we didn't actually meet our single criteria for making a design system, which was it needed to be a shared playground. It was a great playground for designers, but no one else in the company knew about this or was able to access it. So as I said, time moves on, so did our tech stack. We still work with Azure for wireframing because it's really good with that, but we switched out to Sketch like many companies did. But the real shift came when we started embracing web technologies, so good old-fashioned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what that allowed us to do is actually create the second iteration of the design system, but this time in an accessible web app platform, and it looks something like this. And everyone was able to access it, and it looked really great. And it did what it's supposed to do, which is to be a shared playground. What we did with it, however, was we went full on, just crazy amount of detail. Like what you're looking at right now was a view showing variables and base helper classes with their paths in our design system. This is overkill, okay? This is way too much. The best part of it is actually no one gave a shit. No one was looking at this, not even developers. We were really proud to do it. It's like, oh my God, look at it. It's so detailed. But no one really ultimately paid attention to it. What they really wanted to know was, right, what's it called? Where am I supposed to use it? And what does it look like? And how does it behave? That was kind of it. But it did what it was supposed to do. And everyone was sort of very happy and pleased about themselves. And they're like, yes. You know, we're doing the right thing here. We're converging our suite of products instead of working in this chaos. And then September 2015 happened, and what up to that point were separate entities, Paddy Power and Betfair, came to be one. And they merged, and we were kind of the only team who weren't happy about it because we now have two brands. And our design system was built for one. So after crying a little bit, we realized, okay, we need to do something about this because this is a major shift and we just can't, sit around doing nothing. So what we did is we looked at out-of-the-box solutions that would maybe help us. And there's a lot of them, a lot of frameworks that are really well built. And served the task, but none of them did what we desperately needed them to do, which was to have multi-brand support. So we realized, okay, we need to rebuild it again. So yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it? But we did, and it took a while. But this is we're now in present time. This is version 3, our current iteration of the design system. And as you can see, it's both brands, it's Betfair, it's Paddy Power, and there's, to the top left, there's a little switch there that just, click it and it switches from one brand to the other. It's really cool. And it, it serves its purpose for multi-brand. And if we should, take on a third or a fourth brand, we can support that as well. We also looked at the taxonomies, going back to that. So where previously we did atomic design, we really couldn't agree on anything. Like, we spent so much time arguing about this and that, what's a drop-down, right? Is it an atom, is it a molecule, whatever. And it was just time wasted. So we made some changes here, and can anyone tell what the big change is? Just shout it out to me. I can't hear you, so I'm guessing everyone shouted something, but I'm deaf. All right, cool. The big change was we switched from molecules and organisms to just components and just went, fine, whatever. If it's complex, we'll just call it a component, and that's it. But what really made a difference was the atoms. For those of you who are, kind of eagle-eyed, you'll notice that they are actually the list of, not the full list, but the list of HTML elements as supported by W3C. So instead of us taking the task to maintain this taxonomy, just went, right, if it's in the list from the W3C, yeah, then it's an atom. If it's not, it gets out. So that allowed us to win back some time, and instead of focusing on arguing, what we were able to do is actually get in and create this version 3 really quickly. So you got stuff that you would normally get in a design system. Here we've got icons, but of course we've got 2 of them. So one for Paddy, one for Betfair. Buttons as well, but again, 2 sets of buttons. And you'll notice that there's no code in there, there's no paths to anything, no variables. It's just what's it called, what does it do, what does it look like, and that's it. And everyone's just actually pretty happy with that. And what we were able to do is focus on scalability for these components, so making stuff really robust. So this is our registration form for Paddy in this case. And this is actually built within the design system just by mashing together some atoms. That's just kind of, it was really quickly, it was just sort of put them all together and they work. And if, for the UX designers in the room, as well as everyone else, honestly, if you're looking at this going, that's your registration form, that's a bit huge, right? You could probably cut down on a few things. We actually literally cannot cut down on anything. We are legally obligated to have all of that in there. What a wonderful world I live in, right? The other cool thing we can do with this design system is by mashing together, these really simple but robust elements, we're able to build out full pages. So this is the Paddy Games redesign we launched late last year. And what you're looking at right now is actually what we tested with our customers. And it was really quickly to put together. When we put it in front of customers, it wasn't just, oh, here's a nice picture, what you think? It was an actual journey. You could interact with things. You could do pretty much everything other than actually launch a game, because that would, that would be too complex. But ultimately, it serves more than its purpose of converging design. It helps us do user research better. So if there's one key takeaway that we learned from it was it's really hard to build one of these things. It's really hard to align everyone in the same direction. But you run into a bunch of problems along the way that you really don't expect, and they have nothing to do with the actual design of your product. So I'll give you the abridged version of how to start working on a design system for those of you who haven't. So step 1 is you do an interface inventory. Step 2, you settle on a taxonomy. And step 3, you choose a platform. But actually, in reality, it's more like, well, if you do an interface inventory, but not if your product's absolutely fresh. So a startup, just starting out, there's nothing to inventorize. Is that a word? All right. Taxonomies are hard. Maybe use an existing methodology at first. Don't necessarily try and reinvent the wheel unless you have to. And platforms, make sure they're accessible wherever they may be. I've seen teams do it in Sketch and Zeppelin. I've seen teams do it in PDF, though I honestly don't really recommend doing that. But the big lesson here, step number 4, is to actually keep failing and learning, because the design system is a product for your product. It's an internal thing that helps your product be better. And whatever you do and however you decide to do it, make sure you do it not in isolation, because like the Beatles said, you get by with a little help from your friends. So thank you very much.